Hey friends, welcome to One Little Coder. Today we are going to learn how to take demo from Hugging Face Spaces and run it on your own Google Colab. So why do you want to do that first? If you see this currently, this is a very popular demo at this point, very popular Hugging Face Spaces. So it has got a bunch of diffusion models, but fine-tuned diffusion models. So a lot of people are trying out this particular space at this point, which means you're going to be on queue and you are going to consume the same compute that everybody is consuming. So once your turn comes in the queue, then you're going to run and then that is going to take the same amount of time, like ideally. So what we can do is, like, for example, you can now see the output. So instead of waiting for others to finish in the queue, you can take this code and run it on your own Google Colab. And Google Colab also most likely will give you a T4 machine, Tesla T4, which means ultimately you're going to skip the queue and get the same speed that you would ideally get if you are the first in the queue. And this might be most applicable for very popular demos, but otherwise you are not going to be in the queue, so you don't have to mind. So I'm going to show you how to take this particular demo and then run it on your own Google Colab. And again, because this is a Gradio demo, first I'm going to link for this particular demo, which is fine-tuned diffusion. For this particular Hugging Face space, I've created a Google Colab notebook. But if you want to do it differently, I'll also tell you which is a part that you have to do and what are the nuances there. First thing is create a Google Colab notebook. Click new file, click new Google Colab notebook. Once you click and create a new Google Colab notebook, if your Hugging Face Spaces demo requires a GPU, then make sure that click runtime, click change runtime and select GPU hardware accelerator here. If you do not get GPU on your Google Colab, I've got a separate video where I talk about 3 different alternatives for Hugging Face, 3 different alternatives to Google Colab. Please check it out. But if you have got Google Colab notebook with GPU, then you are lucky. Say thank you and then start first checking whether you have got GPU. NVIDIA SMI will test and tell you what is the GPU machine you have got. But generally, if you want to check if you have got GPU, you can just do import torch and then see if torch CUDA is available, which means your GPU is available. Once we know that GPU is available, the next step for us is to clone the Hugging Face Spaces repo. So this repo is something that we are going to clone. So you can copy the URL here, or you can, just basically copy the URL. That's the easiest way. And then go back to your notebook and say this bang git clone. So if you're not familiar with this symbol on Google Colab, so this is basically to run shell script on your Google Colab notebook. A Google Colab notebook typically is a Python kernel, which means in the cell, ideally you can run Python and then you can write text, which is marked down here. But because we want to clone, get the content of it, one thing you can do is you can download this entire thing, upload it back to Google Colab. But to do it programmatically, the easiest option and also the option that is scalable, which means you can reproduce it, is bang git clone and the spaces entire link. Once you do that, you're going to get this entire content here inside this particular folder, fine-tuned _ diffusion. It is the same name. You're going to get it as a folder. After you get it inside the folder, now you have to enter inside the folder. You have to enter inside the directory. So %cd fine-tuned _ diffusion. Now you have entered inside this folder. So now make sure that you have entered inside the folder. Now let's check the contents of the directory, which is bang ls. So that will tell us what are the files that you have got in the current working directory, which is app.py readme.requirements.txt. Go there, click, and you can see these 3. Like, ignore this folder because this is due to model. The next thing is, now you know that you have downloaded the Hugging Face Spaces repo. Now you have got inside that particular folder. Now you have to install the required libraries. So it is mandatory for Hugging Face Spaces demos to include requirements.txt. So we're going to take advantage of it and say pip install -r requirements.txt -q is for quiet, -r is from requirements.txt. Now this is going to install all the libraries, except if it is a Gradio demo. Most likely people wouldn't mention Gradio in the requirements.txt. So install Gradio separately. If it is a Streamlit, that will be the same case. but in this case it is a Gradio demo. So you can do pip install Gradio. If it's a Streamlit, you can do pip install Streamlit. So we are going to install Gradio separately, which we assumed that wouldn't be there in the requirements.txt, but it is a really good habit not to just assume, but open here and then see if Gradio is available here. Gradio is not there. So now that you know that, the second thing that you need to also check is go to the app.py file and then see if there is anywhere Hugging Face token is required. If Hugging Face token is required, then you might also have to do like from Hugging Face hub, import notebook login. So you have to do notebook login as well if token is used anywhere. So if token is used anywhere, then you have to run this thing. If token is not used, then you can literally follow what I'm going to do. So for example, latest Stable Diffusion models, all the models would require you to have a token enabled. You need to authenticate it. So you might have to do the notebook login here at this point. But in our case, because this is a fine-tuned model, this does not require notebook login. So we are going to skip it. The next thing is, sometimes there are certain nuances that people write. For example, if you take this particular Hugging Face demo, you can see at the end, they have said demo.launch. Now demo.launch would launch this application with a local URL, not an external URL, which means you're not going to get a URL that you can share on the internet. So for that, you have to add a parameter here, argument here that says share is equal to true. So what we are going to do is we're going to go inside the folder, copy the entire file, double click it, copy the entire content from here, and then come and paste it here and then say %% write file app.py. We're going to overwrite it, but before overwriting it, we're going to just make one last change. It is say share is equal to true. Means we're going to get an external URL so that you don't have to manually handle the tunneling part. Now that is done. That's it. Like we are done with everything that we had to do. Now all you have to do is go here, bang, Python app.py, which will ideally run the particular Gradio application. For the first time when it runs, it's going to download all the models and then it's going to take a lot of time. The next thing you can see the local URL is available. The next thing you have got the public URL, the external URL. So now click the URL. Once you click the URL, the application, like what you see here, the same thing has opened here. So now I can upload an image. For example, I can upload an image here. I can select Anne Hathaway. And then I can say Arcane Diffusion, Robo Diffusion, maybe Cyberpunk Anime Diffusion. Nice. I can say Anne Hathaway. And I can say click run. So you can see that it is currently running on GPU. And you are not going to be on queue primarily because you are the only person who is using it unless until you share this URL with somebody else. We have got the result, which looks pretty bad. So the idea here is that we get to run the model either on our local machine if you have got GPU, or on Google Colab where there is no queue for you to wait. One enhancement that you can ideally do is sometimes when you run this, you can also separate the part where your model is getting downloaded and then you can have where the Gradio application is run. So this way, if the code is written in such a way that if it is going to download model multiple times, so you can avoid that. What I'm suggesting is if you see the code, the Gradio codes, you would see the part where the model gets downloaded. For example, in this case, you can see until this, the model gets downloaded. So you can sometimes separate this and then keep the second half separately so that, you know, your code, your Google Colab notebook is not going to download the model all the time. So that's something that you can keep in mind. But overall, the objective here is to teach you how to download the Hugging Face spaces on your Google Colab notebook and then run it so that you are not waiting on the queue. And I think this tutorial helps you in doing that. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, enjoy your free GPU with Google Colab, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Happy Stable Diffusion. Peace.